What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of First Date Unsolved. We are officially here in 2025. We have some follow ups, we have all new cases, some spins on things coming up. So stick around. I feel like I say this a lot. I try to keep it interesting, try to keep it fresh for you guys. But when it comes to the follow ups, and maybe like part twos, I guess you could say, I'm very, very excited to have been contacted by some family members. I might have even said this in the Ann Manchester part one. Not entirely sure. It's been a long break, much needed break, mental health break, whatever you want to call it. It was needed, but I'm back. We're back. So let's get into it. As promised, at the end of 2024, we are here with a part two for Anne Denise Victoria Manchester. Today you'll hear from one of our listeners and I as we go over theories and more details of the Anne Manchester case. Jeremy Smith is very knowledgeable when it comes to multiple cases that we've already covered or that, have kind of been on my radar for some time. He's always eager to help me out and share what he's dug up through his own investigating. So sitting down and speaking with him about Anne's case only felt right. At the time of our meeting, I had already recorded what happened to Anne Manchester Part 1. If you've listened to that episode, Jeremy is the individual who provided me with screenshots from group messages, and he's the one who put me in touch with the woman who had intense and vivid dreams about Miss Manchester. He really knows his stuff when it comes to this missing person specifically, and I was interested in knowing what got him so invested in what happened to Anne.
Is there something in particular about this case that really caught your attention, or?
Well, okay, so my interest in the Anne Manchester case goes back a pretty long time. Do you remember Kaylee Elise?
I do not.
She was a YouTube true crimer. She did a lot of cold cases. Eventually, she pulled out of doing it because she her mental health was just not standing up to reporting about all these cases. Surprisingly, if you actually look into some of the cases she's covered, a lot of them have been solved, especially a lot of the Doe cases. But I think a lot of her videos have been pulled down from YouTube. But yeah, so she did an episode about a woman who was stabbed in her home in 1975. And this was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And right.
Which isn't far.
So because Lancaster is fairly close to Newark, Delaware, it's only about an hour away.
Yeah.
I looked at the case of Anne Manchester, and I thought they could be related. And then I don't really think that anymore, but I did for a long time think that her case could be related to, and I was working off of this theory for years that all these three cases were related. I've backed away from that, but I've definitely I did think it's interesting that there's there just seems to be all these cases in the Mid-Atlantic region in the late 70s and early 80s that just have all these young women who were either abducted or killed. Yeah, that's I think in her case, in Linda O'Day's case, I believe supposedly there were talks about a boyfriend. I know that in Linda's case, they were looking at Henry Lee Lucas.
Yeah.
And then I think they've backed away from that. I don't think they think he's related. And I don't think he would be related either, just because I get the feeling that whoever killed Linda O'Day and stabbed her, it was probably somebody that was comfortable in her neighborhood.
Mhm.
and who wouldn't have stood out, because I mean, like whoever took Linda O'Day's life, he likely broke into her house and then lied in wait for her. And I think it would have been somebody that wouldn't have aroused the suspicion of any neighbors, because you've seen how like tight the houses are.
Yeah, they're right. Like there's no spaces.
They're like, yeah, those houses, like the neighborhood is, it's a very nice. I don't know what the conditions of the neighborhood might have been in like the early 80s, but I mean, if you look at it now, it's a very nice little neighborhood.
Mhm.
And I definitely feel like if you had somebody like crawling around who was, unfamiliar to neighbors at 2 a.m. in the morning, somebody would have said something.
Yeah, it's very quiet around there. Like there's like no traffic sounds. It's quiet. It's a lot of older people. Well, like you said in the 80s, maybe it was different, but now it's a lot of older people because those houses are expensive. And it's very, very quiet. So
You just heard Jeremy explain how he learned about Anne and the reason behind his interest in the case, along with a little banter on Linda O'Day, who we covered back in episode 27. If you haven't listened to that yet and you are interested in hearing more about her case, along with the murder of Mary Amelia Allen, you can head over to that episode later on. But Jeremy and I knew we had to stay on task, and he quickly put us back on track. Jeremy explained that he interviewed people who lived in the same apartment complex as Manchester, which I covered in part 1. A common theme amongst those he spoke with is that there was definitely a cover-up at work here. One theory is that certain entities in the Newark area wanted any noise about Anne hushed up as soon as possible. Some institutions may have something to lose if a young woman associated with them vanishes off the face of the earth. Vanishes not far from where they are located. And I'm sorry if this is too vague, but I hope you all can all read between the lines with all of the facts we've already covered and add that to what you are about to hear and land on what I'm trying to actually say without saying it. I'm not trying to get sued or questioned or whatever. So take a listen.
That's what I find so fascinating about Anne Manchester's case, is that it just feels like it should have been something that should have had a lot of press around it.
yeah,
You have a young, attractive 26-year-old girl from an upper middle class family. I mean, if you read about her, dad was a chemist. Her mom was also a very accomplished woman. Her brother is I think he's a medical executive.
oh,
She came from a very respectable type of family, and you would think that there would be all kinds of interest in her case and trying to figure out who did this to her, but there's just nothing. There was 2 articles about her, and that's about it.
And
I don't understand.
going back to you and D, I think I might have mentioned this to you before. If she was days away, if she was days away from her master's, did no one, I didn't see anywhere, you've done a lot more research than I have, clearly, but I didn't see anywhere where anyone from the school, any professors, any of her, anyone was concerned until her parents raised a flag, hey, where's our kid?
There's one paragraph in the UD review in 1980, In 1980, there's one paragraph in the review, and that's it. There isn't any mention of what happens to Anne Manchester in the 1981 school yearbook either. There is nothing. And I don't understand that. I don't understand.
That's so odd.
It's no, it's they pretty much, and you would, and then I've talked to, I did talk to somebody who said that he was with the University of Delaware Police. We do have to take everything with a grain of salt. I'm not going to be but, and then I mentioned well, did they ever try interviewing her professors or students? And he said they did, but they were really just more interested in the boyfriend or the married boyfriend from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then it kind of feels like they just focus on that. And then it doesn't seem and then anything that would have pointed towards the university, they kind of just brushed off to the side.
Right. Okay.
and here's my and this is why I'm like, what if it's not the boyfriend, What if it's not the boyfriend, and what if that theory isn't right? And what if it's actually, say, like, somebody who went to class with Anne Manchester, and they knew she was studying, and they said, "Oh, hey, Anne, I have some notes in my car. You want to come out and get some notes for me?" That's kind of what I've always thought might have happened to her.
It's possible.
In my own personal theory.
Yeah, because they were saying all of her stuff was in her apartment. She had a stack of papers and books like she had been studying. She didn't have any shoes on, so it makes sense. Like, I'm just going to run outside real quick. I don't need my purse. I don't need to be fully dressed, like with my shoes and everything.
And then here's my question. Okay, so say that it is the boyfriend, or I mean the married boyfriend. Say that it is, okay? You're a 26-year-old girl. Your love interest says that he wants to meet with you. Are you really just going to run out barefoot, not take anything with you, to like go out and talk with your love interest?
No, because if they had a relationship, she likely would have invited him in, or they would have went somewhere, like made plans to
talk. Yeah, similar. Similar. A case that would be similar would be Anne Marie Fahey from 1996.
Oh yeah, everybody.
That would be like if we're going with the theory that it's basically the same idea of a young woman is having an affair with a married man, and then she's trying to break it off with him, and then they meet up one last time, and he kills her and then hides her body. But I mean, like in Anne's case, she was seen going out with him and getting dragged. You could see that stuff had happened. Like, things weren't normal. In Anne's case, it was a completely normal day, and then she just vanished in the middle of nowhere. So then and then it runs into other things that are going on in the complex. So I talked to people who said that Villa Belmont is a condominium now, but when Anne lived there, it was apartments. And I was told by people that there was a rougher element that lived in the building, like a biker gang.
Oh.
Something like that. And then they eventually moved out, when the apartments became condos. So then, but yeah, I mean, that's another thing to consider. Maybe could have been someone in an apartment building, like somebody that lived there. I was told by somebody that there was a neighbor that they suspected who was seen using a telescope to spy on the residents.
Yeah, I do remember reading about the weird guy. I think that he was also mentioned, or maybe that's where I got it from, the screenshots you sent me. I remember reading about a weird neighbor.
Yeah, like I said, I had to go through I've been going to Facebook, and I've been talking in Facebook groups, just trying to get anybody who might have lived in Villa Belmont at the time that Anne Manchester went missing, to see if they're willing to say anything about their time there. And this woman, she said that she lived there. She said that Anne lived in building 76.
Okay.
She said that she was, when Anne went missing, she was interviewed about the case, and that when she was living there, there was a neighbor who was seen spying on the residents with a telescope, and that he was definitely looked at and considered. Somebody who claims to be the wife of the main investigator, or one of the main investigators, did say that both the boyfriend from Lancaster, we'll call him Al,
yeah,
and the neighbor with a telescope were both ruled out as suspects.
Yeah, I remember seeing that as well.
Yeah. So then you're kind of back to square one, and it's just like I said, I mean, they might have been ruled out just because they didn't have any evidence. I mean, this really does seem like one of the most perfect crimes. This really does seem like a really perfect crime there, just because there's no evidence at all.
Right.
She just disappeared.
Off bang.
And just and also think about the fact that she disappeared during the summer. So the apartment complex might have not have been as crowded as it normally would be, since it wasn't in the middle of the school year. And nobody knew she was missing for a week. So there could have been somebody who was in the parking lot and saw Anne Manchester getting forced into a car, and they might have just thought it was a typical boyfriend and girlfriend having an argument.
Yeah, lovers quarrel or whatever.
Yeah. And then by the time they started interviewing the residents, they might have completely forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just
we're so spoiled because you watch TV or movies or whatever, and happy ending, they solve it, but it's just, reality is sometimes it doesn't happen. It's so crazy.
I mean, yeah, and especially in a case like Anne Manchester, just because there's just been so little follow about the case.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I feel very emotionally attached to the case, is because there's nobody really advocating for her. I mean, it kind of just seems like they stopped at, this is what happened, likely happened, and then okay, it's okay.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
And this will never be solved, so yeah, that's okay. We can just go off and do, oh well, this girl just disappeared. It doesn't seem like I have to try talking to people who just remember living in New York in general, and they don't seem to have any kind of, a lot of them, they've never even heard of the case, even though they lived in New York.
Yeah. Huh. I know a lot of times I'll ask my parents, or sometimes even my grandparents, hey, did you ever hear about this? Usually it's no. Because,
Well, to be fair, at the time Anne Manchester went missing, the New York Post was not really active as a newspaper. It was just circular ads.
Mm.
At the time, they eventually reinstated the New York Post around 1985. But I believe from 1969 through 1984, it was just circular ads.
Okay.
So then, that's where you kind of wish that the UD Review had maybe done something more.
Well, yeah.
Than a 2-paragraph blurb. If you look at the little, tiny little blurb about her disappearance, it's oh yeah, this girl went missing, and oh well. That's kind of what it feels like if you read it.
Let me see.
It's this very tiny little blurb about her disappearance. And again, you would think that especially a school newspaper where they're usually thirsting for news stories, the fact that a student went missing and there's a one 2-paragraph article about her case. They don't even include a photo of her.
Jeremy and I did jump around a lot during our conversation, but we always came back around to the lack of evidence in this case and the lack of coverage Anne received. We're about to discuss Anne's family, and even though they are educated and a well-to-do family that put up a generous reward, their daughter's whereabouts are still unknown 40 years later.
When I first started researching Anne's case, I was looking for obituaries for her parents. Because, Anne was 26 years old in 1980.
Yeah.
I figured that her parents had probably, like, and I started looking at her case around 2018. I figured her parents would have already been passed away. And then I was like, well, why can't I find an obituary on them? And then later on, I found out the reason why I couldn't find one was because her parents were still alive all the way up until like 2023. Like, her mom made it to like 93 years old. And her daughter has been missing for 44 years. Like, that's heartbreaking.
That's
like, her daughter was missing longer than she got to have her as her daughter.
yeah. I was trying. I don't know if you saw the gears turning, but I was trying to do the math real quick. Yeah, she didn't have her very long, considering.
But yeah, no, I mean, I did like I did learn through the obituary that she does have family, because I was originally working off the assumption that Anne was an only child, because somebody on one of the Facebook groups that I had been researching the case, had told me that Anne was an only child, but it looks like she has a twin brother.
Oh, a twin. Okay. Did I know? I don't think I knew that. I knew she had a brother.
I think he's a twin, just because, like, if you go off on the ages, they match up pretty well.
Okay.
Like, I think it says that he graduated. I think he went to Berkeley University out in Cal. Well, can you bleep this part? Because I do want to, like. But yeah, she has a brother. He went out to California for college, and then graduated around the same time that she would have in 1976. So I kind of just assumed,
Okay.
that he's probably her brother, or they're just very close in age. And yeah, I mean, I think she's got like nieces and nephews and everything like that, and
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
she does have family. I've considered trying to like get in contact with her family, but I feel weird about it, in all honesty.
Yeah, it's sometimes people get weirded out. Other times people just, it's been so long, they don't see the point in talking about it. Everybody acts differently or reacts differently.
Yeah, I mean, I did look up her brother's Facebook. I mean, if you look at her brother, he looks just like her.
Yeah.
Like, especially the eyes.
Yeah, I think
But
you mentioned that before.
you could definitely tell that they're, very similar eyes, very similar smile. And I mean, yeah, it's just heartbreaking to think that, like, he's been missing his sister for 44 years. Like, Anne Manchester would have been 70 years old if she was alive. And she's been missing since she was 26.
Your life
It's just like a whole lifetime of her life that she just got stolen from her.
26. You're still. I used to hate, when I was that age, I used to hate hearing, "Oh, you're just a baby," but you still are. Like, your life was just beginning at that point.
And it just seems like she was such an ambitious young woman. Like, she, like, and like I said, she came from a very accomplished family.
Mm-hmm.
Very accomplished. It just makes you wonder what she could have done in her life if she had been given the chance to. And I guess that's what I just find so interesting about this case, is that, like, this wasn't, like, usually when it comes to cases where, like, the victims are ignored and they're not really given any proper consideration by the police. Well, I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying, like, usually, like, victims who don't really get, like,
coverage
looked at are usually, like, prostitutes or people from, like, lower social backgrounds, but, like, she was from pretty high up there.
Yeah. They're what's the word?
A very affluent family.
They're undesirables usually.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, this is, a girl from the exact opposite of that kind of background.
Yeah, that's very, very good point.
Her family belonged to a country club. Her dad worked at Hercules Chemical. Like, I mean, they were very, like, a respectable Delaware family, and you would think that, like, there would be more consideration for, like, finding out what happened to her, but there wasn't. And that's what I think is really interesting about the case is like, why wasn't there?
I know there was a reward. I think, was it $5,000? Let me see. Back then, would have been 20,000 today. So,
Right.
that's a chunk of change. They had the money to put that up, and still nothing.
You know, all right, well, I just, so like, I guess, to get onto like another theory that I've been, looking at and exploring a little bit, the maintenance, the Jennifer Kiss type disappearance,
Yeah.
like, the idea that Anne may have been abducted by like a maintenance worker or something like that at the apartment building. I did talk with somebody who said that there might have been roof work getting done the summer that Anne Manchester went missing.
Okay.
So that's another possibility, and it could also explain why Anne may have like just disappeared from her apartment the way she did and didn't even. Somebody like a maintenance worker could have come up to her apartment building and said, "Oh look, there's something going on. We need to go. We need to get out of here." And then she gets abducted from there.
Yeah, but she probably would have had shoes on, right? Something.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Maybe. I don't like to be.
maybe they were just saying like we need to go out for like we need to like check this like air conditioning unit or something up there and
Outside real quick, please.
Outside real quick, and then because it was June, she didn't feel the need to put on any shoes. Maybe because I mean she did disappear during the summer, so
Yeah.
it would have been pretty hot out. Like maybe she was okay with being barefoot for just a little bit.
Yeah, I remember reading.
That's
she was like had shorts on. She had like a nice tan going.
yeah. That's another idea to think about. Like maybe it was a worker, and then I would also explain, like when I just talk to residents, it seems like nobody really wants to talk about it. I did try and get in contact with a woman who was the manager at the time that Anne went missing, and she didn't really want to talk. She didn't want to talk about it either.
Huh.
I think that's the really frustrating thing about trying to research these old cold cases that don't have a lot of evidence on them, because it's just really, you're also working against time too, because these people are starting to pass away. Like I said, if Anne Manchester had been alive today, she'd be 70. So like people she lived with would be in like their 70s and 80s probably by now in that complex.
It sucks, back then there wasn't a whole lot of surveillance footage of any kind.
I just feel like it would be really helpful if like you could get a list of who the tenants were at the time that, because now you could do it, like just a list of the tenants of the apartment building, and then a list of the people she went to school with. Like I feel like that's where the answer lies.
Kind of like
because I mean, if you think about it, like as a graduate student, it seems like her life would have been basically just being at home and studying, and then going to school. It doesn't look. I tried to see if she was working at the time she was in grad school, and it looks like she stopped working at the steel plant. At least by like the final year that she had been, like she, from what I understand, like she wasn't working at the time that she disappeared.
Okay.
Like she had been at the steel plant, but then she quit in order to like tackle school full time. Because let me tell you, graduate school is not easy.
What about the suicide or running away theory?
I mean, like I said, anything's possible. Because we don't really know that much about Anne Manchester, except that she was very like she was a very neat. They said that she was a very neat and orderly person, and she did come from a very accomplished family, and her brother went to a very prestigious school out in California, and maybe she felt like she might not have been like living up to that. It's a possibility. I know that she did take a little longer to finish. Because let's see, she would have graduated high school in '72, and then she graduated her undergrad in 1976, and she took a little bit of time off and worked for a while before she started her MBA. So maybe her brother may have already graduated by then, and she may have felt like she was a little bit behind. So like I could see where she might have been stressed out, or might have been feeling like she wasn't living up to her family expectations, and then maybe. But then it's also like, well, she was 3 days away.
Yeah, right.
It's not like she was that close to the end. I mean, it's not like she was in the middle. I feel like if she was going to have that kind of breakdown, it probably would have happened while she still had like a whole semester left or something like that. Or like maybe like in the middle, like at the halfway point of her program.
Yeah, it's not like she had a long way to go.
I mean, like she had like basically one test left. That's where I'm like,
I know reading articles, they really focused on. I read it in like 2 different articles that she wasn't the type of person to like walk somewhere. She wasn't a walker. She would drive her car anywhere she had to go, and I think that was kind of their way of saying she didn't leave on her own will. Somebody forced her to leave.
Yeah, I mean, and where was she going to go walk? She was barefoot.
Yeah, that too.
Like, I mean, it's not like if you look at the area as a whole, it wouldn't be a bad theory because there are woods. There, like even with all the development that's happened in Newark, there's still like wooded areas. And I mean, there are places where somebody could go for a walk and they could like meet some kind of accident. But I can't really put any credence into that theory just because like the people knew her, right? People knew her, so that oh yeah, she wasn't somebody who was going to go out and go for a walk just for fun or just to clear her head. She wasn't that type of person. So what are your general thoughts about the case?
Like I mentioned earlier, like, I watch a lot of true crime stuff. We've touched on this a couple times. It's real easy to finger the married lover, right? But how many times have you watched something and there's like this huge plot twist? It could just be something completely out of left field that no one even is considering. Like you mentioned, like a pizza guy or a maintenance guy. It's just sad that there's so many possibilities. It's not like it's this or that. It could be this, or it could be that, or it could be this. It's very frustrating.
Like I said, I just wish, like maybe they did. I mean, I don't want to like go around and bash, cops for not doing
their job.
Like a job. I don't want to say that they did a bad job because I don't know. I haven't seen their files and all of that. I'm not going to say that, but I wish that there had been just like maybe there had been like listing. You could find like a list of like people who were in her apartment building, and like people who had been in classes with her. Like University of Delaware does have a yearbook, but the yearbook doesn't extend to graduate school. So like if they had been like a graduate school picture, oh, could you imagine? I would have been it would have been so helpful if you could talk to people who were in a grad program.
Yeah.
What you were missing. And I mean it's graduate school too. Like you tend to know the people you're with.
Right.
Like those are usually very tight cohorts.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions about UAD and the people who went to school with her and the professors. I have a lot of questions about that specifically.
I get why the police are zeroed in on the married boyfriend. Like, I understand that. I understand that perfectly.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it kind of seems like they went with that theory and then didn't really consider
other options.
anything else.
Yeah.
And, there have been cases where, like, they were solved by death cab confession from somebody that nobody would have ever figured out.
Yeah.
There's this case over from 1989 in New Mexico of this young woman who was killed by shooting drive-by. It was in 1989. Her mother, her name was Caitlin Arquette. Her mother was a famous children's author named Lois Duncan.
Oh.
And for up until the time Lois Duncan died, she had been advancing a theory that her daughter was killed because of her involvement with an insurance and fraud scheme, or possibly a drug scheme as well. Like that her daughter had been involved with a couple of shady people, and then she got taken out because of that. And then it turned out this was after she had passed away, but they found out a couple of years later, a man came forward and confessed to killing Caitlin Arquette, and it was just a completely random killing. He was just a serial killer who shot at Caitlin Arquette because she was a pretty young girl driving a car.
Yeah, like I said, the most random things happen sometimes, and it's crazy because you would never think that. And it could be something like that in Anne's case.
It could have been somebody who, lured her into their apartment and then killed her in the apartment. And then that could go with what the psychic was saying about how, Anne's body could have been kept for 3 days and then they buried her after 3 days.
Yeah. But, if everyone wasn't interviewed or, if this person didn't stand out to police in any way, then there's no reason to look any further. But yeah, there's too many possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just glad that I've been able to get, I've definitely been trying to get more people interested in the case. And I feel like I was really excited when I saw that Dark Curiosity that covered Anne's case, because there's only 2 videos about Anne on YouTube, and one is from Dark Curiosities, and it has 20,000 views, which is pretty good.
Oh,
and then another one is from a different YouTuber. It's a 12-minute video. Yeah, so I definitely feel like if you can get the word out,
I'm trying.
Maybe somebody forgot something. Yeah.
And that's it, folks. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Be on the lookout for more to come. As always, I still think I'm going to do the every 2-week schedule for a little bit. It's kind of working for me. I hope that's all right with you guys. Give me any feedback. I always appreciate it. Please be kind. But as always, thank you for listening. And if you thought nothing ever happened here, you thought wrong.